I don't believe anybody gets to be added to the nice list for the Denver Broncos. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Postgame Live. We've got Rachel V. Hill and DMAC hanging with you. James Marilat will join us in a little bit after Nathaniel Hackett speaks to the media. DMAC, this has to be the most embarrassing game for the Denver Broncos this season by far as they fall to the Rams in LA.
Oh, it's not just this season. That's clear. It's an all-timer. We're gonna have to start looking up. I mean, it's a 37-point loss. So just start there. When was the last 37-point loss there's been? I'm sure there's been others. But let's throw the national TV thing on it as well. And you want to throw another Yule log on the fire. This is cousin-in-law, Stan Kroenke. This is to his team, to Rob Walton. Never mind Greg Penner, to Rob Walton. And this was humiliating, beyond humiliating. And then you've got to throw in the other humiliating factors, which is you got schooled by Baker Mayfield. And George Paton didn't even put in a claim for Baker Mayfield. Instead, that week they signed Jarrett Guarantano, who this week they added to the 53 because they didn't want to lose him and deactivated him. You had a game where Russell Wilson should have been benched after the first quarter if you wanted a chance for the team to win. So I don't know what has happened here that we are so muddled in our thinking that one person means more than an entire team. And I don't think the hundreds of people that work for the Denver Broncos deserve it. I don't think the players who worked deserve it. I think the defense was pathetic today. I think they gave up and they had no – and the reason I think they gave up, Rachel, is they knew early in the first quarter, we got Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson can go over and pat guys on the knee and slap them on the shoulder pads and give him his rah-rah TED Talks. And Dalton Reisner is pushing and shoving Brett Rippon. And Russ can go settle that down, but it does not escape the fact you have an incompetent quarterback trying to play in the NFL right now. Incompetent. And this is humiliating. The number one problem is Russell Wilson. Everybody will want to fire Hackett today. And if it just makes you feel better, fine, because I can't defend a lot of the decision or the preparations. But this thing was set up for failure a long time ago. And I'll still stand firm that the number one problem is Russell Wilson. Number two, or 1B, is George Paton. And then, a distant third is Hackett. So if it makes you feel better, but if you don't get rid of the two main problems, Rachel, you're just going to repeat this ugly process probably for the next 3 years because you don't move on from what needs to be moved on from. And I hate to end a sentence in a preposition, but there, I just did that of.
Here's the thing. For me, it's George Paton who has created this entire mess, which is why he's always problem number one in my book. But we are always reading the comments. Keep them coming. I know Broncos country is very frustrated. But you have players that are now fighting post-game. We know Randy Gregory just got in a fight with Bobby Wagner behind the post-game interview. You have teams that are your offensive line is yelling at your quarterback and your backup quarterback is having to go over and say something. Like this team has turned into they're definitely thinking 1, 2, 3 Cancun, but the fact that they're not able to keep it together is a whole nother level on Hackett not being able to coach his team. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Randy Gregory had a horrible game today.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible game.
Should he have even played?
No, well, I don't know. I mean, he's healthy. I guess you play if you're healthy. But, I mean, he was I'll look at, I mean, 2 15-yard penalties, which, ruined things. I don't know why he's fighting Bobby Wagner afterwards. He's just it's a loose cannon, man. He was a loose, and that's another George Paton pickup. A guy who's a loose cannon on the field, was injured off the field, had plenty of problems in the past, and nice enough guy. If you talk to him one-on-one, he is. But, I mean, ridiculously bad pickup by George Paton. How is that paying off? And you didn't bring back Vaughn where you could have. You got rid of Bradley Chubb. Why? Because of Randy Gregory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's pathetic, man. It's pathetic. Yeah, I really didn't think nobody assumed it could get this bad. I mean, CBS was trying to shine this one up the best that they could, and they lost interest halfway through the game, rightfully so. I mean, they're talking about the big comebacks with the Vikings. I mean, Rachel,
Yeah.
at any moment, did you think there was going to be any kind of comeback? Did you?
Oh, absolutely not. And I came into this game thinking, oh, this is going to be two bad teams, but at least it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be, a fun game to watch. Russ throws the first pick, and I was like, and this game is officially over. Because if Russ doesn't have an A+ game, this team deserves or doesn't have a chance at all. And how many A+ games have we seen it from Russ? Hardly any. Today was the first time when DMAC, I saw your point of, oh, something's off with Russ. Like he's no longer the same quarterback. You can't blame the offensive line for him. You can't blame any of his receivers. First of all, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver number 1, he's looking fantastic.
Yeah.
But today was the first time when I really looked at Russ and I said, I don't know if there's any overcoming this. We've put a lot of the other pieces around, but he just looks different. And I don't know if he's checked out because he knows, oh, we're eliminated from the playoffs. Oh, I don't believe Nathaniel Hackett. I don't believe in him. I don't know what it is, but Russell Wilson just did not look there today. And it was bizarre. Like, the Russell Wilson we all watched for 10 years in Seattle. Like, that's the Russ you expect to walk on the field. And today he looked nowhere near that, D-Mac.
This is scary. He wasn't
Yeah.
checked out, Rachel. This is Russell Wilson with rest, over the concussion. And this was like as prepared as he could be for this particular game. Listen, Rachel, the Rams defense, they've got tons of injuries too.
I know.
They are missing Aaron Donald amongst others. They
Mhm.
are a 4-10 team, Rachel. And when we see all the horrible weather conditions around the country, this
Yeah.
could not have been played in better conditions.
True.
Impossible. And yeah, Baker Mayfield did struggle in Packerland in terrible weather. Okay, fine. But look what Baker Mayfield, 24 of 28, quarterback rating of 124.7, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, that dude just balled out. And he didn't even have to do anything all that spectacular. Tony Romo did a great job on TV pointing out, hey, listen, this was here. This play is supposed to go there. Russell isn't seeing it. He's not moving around. Russell Wilson, he rushed for 1 third down, right? Did he pick up? He ran for 1 and almost got his head kicked in again. And that was kind of it. 2 rushes for 17 yards along with 15. So the other rush, I mean, there's just nothing there, man. I mean, it's freaking pathetic. I mean, it is pathetic at this point. And if they wanted a shot to win this game, Rachel, it was obvious after the first quarter you would have to go with somebody besides Russell Wilson. Now, Brett Rippon, he's not very good either, Rach. He's not very good. But again, you passed on not trying to get Baker Mayfield for Jarrett Guarantano. I'm not even sure what to say here because this team is a joke and they played embarrassingly bad today. They lose by 37 points. They lose on national TV, 2 national TV games. All the little kids got to see this embarrassment too on Nickelodeon. And we were worried, oh, it's going to be so low scoring. There's not going to be any slime in the end zone. Well, there was plenty of that. There was plenty of scoring. It was all for the Rams. And then Rachel, it was only a bunch of garbage yards in the end. Garbage yards that even got you to 14 points. Could have been worse, should have been worse. And yeah, again, I don't know. Help me out on the back end there. When was the last time the Broncos lost by 37? How many more embarrassing games can you get compared to this? It's up there.
I would love if Jake has a few seconds to be able to look that up. I mean, I remember, I think it was during the second quarter, I looked at Russell Wilson's QB rating and it was like 25.9 or something. That is unbelievably bad. I don't think I've honestly ever really seen a quarterback that played the entire game with something so low. And I know it ended up going up. It's like 50 something. But there was no reason to see him in the second half at all. Really, after the
None.
second interception, you shouldn't have seen him. But it leads back to
No.
the point, DMAC, is they're forced to play him because of the contract that George Paton gave him, doing the trade that George Paton did. And you, again, didn't get Baker Mayfield because of a decision that George Paton did. Like, he made that decision of Brett Rippon's going to be better. You talked about it a ton on Coffee Break every single weekday morning, is that Russ needs some sort of competition. He is far too comfortable right now.
You just can't forfeit games or give yourself a non-chance to win because of loyalty to one player.
No.
I mean, it's ridiculous. The deal's been done, okay? It's arguably the worst deal in NFL history. Giving him the money the way you did was another incredible blunder. But we just cannot keep losing games because of these dramatic mistakes. You have to try something to stay competitive in games. Mm-hmm. And you're playing the Chiefs next week, Rachel, in Kansas City. I mean, get ready for loss number 15 in a row. I mean, do we think the Broncos have any shot against the Chiefs? The Chiefs got a ton to play for, okay? That they're battling the Bills for the number 1 overall seed. They've got enough motivation to want to win.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be more embarrassing than this because I don't know how you get more embarrassing than this. I mean, I guess there's a possibility.
Here's a question: is Nathaniel Hackett gone tomorrow morning? Are all these people that are commenting, are they going to be joining us tomorrow morning?
You know, like if George Paton is smart and George Paton cares about his own job, he will fire Nathaniel Hackett tomorrow. Mm-hmm. He will. He'll make Hackett the scapegoat. You have a 2-week period starting tomorrow where you can actually start interviewing coaches. So for all intents and purposes, Rachel, this is the end of the year. It just ended. Okay. Mm-hmm. It ended after game 15 because everybody said Hackett would make it to the end of the year. Well, here we are because the interview process for new coaches starts tomorrow. So yeah, that's it. That's the year. That was your year. You ended 4-11, and the last 2 games are
on a very bad note.
Yeah. So, I mean, sure. I mean, why wouldn't you, if you're going to move on from Hackett one way or the other, why wouldn't you? And get your interviews in and start trying to woo Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton. I don't know, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
I mean, I think that saves George Paton's job. So does he have a job tomorrow? I don't know, probably not. But maybe he does because Rachel, who knows? You know, if I was Greg Penner, I wouldn't fire him. I wouldn't. I'm telling you, because you can't move on unless you're willing to move on from all three, Rachel, which is what I want. But if you can't move on from all three, if I'm Greg Penner, I make them all stay together for one more year, and either it clicks or it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and that's that. If you can move on from them, go for it. And if you can go get Jim Harbaugh and you would minimize George Paton and you would stick in the corner Russell Wilson and give another quarterback an option, I mean, okay. That's where it makes sense to get rid of Hackett if you bring in somebody that's going to, like I said, minimize Paton and, potentially stick Russ in the corner. I mean, that's virtually getting rid of all three. So, Rachel, either you get rid of all three, virtually get rid of all three, or keep all three. Because if you don't, Rachel, you're going to hire Frank Reich, and you are going to have this mess for another 3 years because they ain't going to move on from Frank Reich. He's going to get every excuse in the book. He's going to get every availability. He's going to get everything. And that's Dan Quinn, whoever a guy like that. Okay? So, and if you just want to see what you got with Ivero, fine. You got 2 weeks, I guess, to see. I mean, it's not like they haven't done it before. They did it when they blew out McDaniels for Eric Studesville for a couple of games at the end of the season. I mean, you can do it if you want. I just fear that they're going to do the most conservative thing. They will move on from Hackett. They'll hire Frank Reich, somebody drab like that, and we'll just get, more of the same for the next 3 years. It's bad, Rachel, really bad. And if you don't make wholesale changes as soon as possible and probably suffer a worse season to get Caleb Williams and start from the beginning, you're just going to be in this ridiculous cycle, Rachel, year after year. And I don't know, maybe you get 6 wins, Rach. Maybe you get 7, maybe 8. Maybe a miracle happens and you get 9. But do you see a future where any form of this organization beats Patrick Mahomes? What? Herbert? Even the Raiders with Carr. I mean, come on.
I know. But there's like that little sliver of hope for, I think, a lot of people with Russell Wilson still, right? You're
Where
hopeful.
is it? Why?
You just know what he's been able to do. So I think there's just that little tiny bit of hope that you're like, if there's the right game plan, or a coach can come in here and can actually coach him, and they bring in some competition, then maybe Russell Wilson can return to the quarterback that we saw in Seattle for so many years. That there's that tiny sliver of hope. When it comes to Nathaniel Hack, I mean, there's nothing that we have no success rate with him at all. It's not like we even know exactly what he did when he was up there in Green Bay. So there's just nothing with him. With George Paton, we're at like a 80% failure rate compared to 20% good, and we don't even know the long-term effects of any of the good things. So it's really not looking good for him either. So what's the odds that he comes back tomorrow morning? What are the odds that Greg Penner steps up and says, we're making a drastic change immediately because none of this is working?
You'd be hard-pressed to fire George Paton tomorrow, only because there's just some logistical things that you need to do to finish out the year that excuse me. I mean, there's silly stuff. There's contract. There's like really way crazy back-end contracts, future deals. I mean, there's just all this like weird GM stuff, Rachel, that actually has to be done. So just getting rid of George Paton, it's not like somebody else couldn't do it, but you wouldn't necessarily see him dismissed. Although, man, oh man, would that be something. If tomorrow, if the press conference is Greg Penner and he says, I've made a change from Hackett and George Paton, okay, Greg, now we're talking. We're talking. And if you want to have that press conference, I mean, that's exactly what I would have tomorrow. Everybody is in such like, I actually saw somebody today who I respect, and they were like, I think Hackett's pretty good. I'm like, you got to be kidding. Paton. I think George Paton is pretty good. And I'm just like, how? Why? Where? I mean, what? Rachel, and it doesn't matter that we all liked the Russell Wilson deal initially, okay? That doesn't matter. We aren't the ones being paid millions and millions of dollars to look into it, to study and to know it. You know, that's not on us on the surface. How are we supposed to know Russell Wilson was toast? How are we supposed to know the Seahawks were trying to get rid of him as early on as 2017? How are we we're not supposed to know that. You know who's supposed to know that? A general manager of a football team. Somebody who does their homework. Somebody who just doesn't take a consolation prize to Aaron Rodgers, which was a wild shot anyways, when you really look at it. And we're just going to settle in for Russell Wilson. I mean, it's not that you just passed on Fields and Mac Jones, which you did. It's that you gave up the pick last year, which could have been Kenny Pickett, and the pick this year. And as bad as they are, it could be Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. It could be another quarterback like that. So you've really given up on the 2 quarterbacks specifically, a third in Pickett, and possibly another 3 that you could have got this year, possibly. That's 6 great quarterbacks, or at least 6 quarterbacks worth taking a chance on.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, mind-blowing, Rachel, how bad that is. And you did so to spend ridiculous amounts of money and give away up all sorts of other picks to build the future. No, I mean, you're right. Listen, there should be a press conference tomorrow, and Greg Penner should be the one at the podium. And Greg Penner should be the one saying, Broncos fans, this is not acceptable. We have given George Paton and Nathaniel Hackett their walking orders, and we start rebuilding this team today. I mean, seriously, Darren Muji, the assistant GM, can figure out future contracts, and a partridge in a pear tree can call the games against the Chiefs and the Chargers. Because, I mean, seriously, who cares for those final 2 games? So
it's already a dumpster fire, so it doesn't matter. Here's 2 stats for you, though.
This is all on Greg Penner. This is on him. This does not take a genius, Rachel. Get out your checkbook, write out the money to Peyton and Hackett and start again. Okay? Yep. And you know what? I'll give Greg Penner the benefit of the doubt. He had nothing to do with bringing these guys in the first place. He trusted George Payton about the contract for Russell Wilson. He's been doing this long enough to know what's for real, okay? And he just got slapped upside the head in his cousin-in-law's relative, whatever they are, that house. And another thing, it's beyond clear as they get embarrassed at SoFi that the Walton Penner Group, Rachel, is about to go cheap on a stadium. They're not building a new stadium anytime soon. So you know what, Greg? You're saving your money for something. Pay out the problem, and let's get moving towards the future.
Gosh, we can only hope. Okay, I've got 2 different stats for you. You ready? Yeah. The 37-point loss is the only 35-plus point loss since Super Bowl 48, excuse me, 48. When the Broncos lost to the Seahawks by 35. Jake on the back end doing a wonderful job with the stat. And it's the worst loss since October 24th, 2010, when they lost 59-14 to Oakland. An absolutely embarrassing loss, just like I think it's super embarrassing to get in a fight behind a post-game interview on national television on Christmas Day. But Randy Gregory is doing that while we also welcome in our very own James Marilat to the conversation. I'm actually interested. This is the first time that I'm going to see this. Michael Spencer of CBS 4 sent this over. Oh, just lovely.
That's funny.
Chris, it's so a minor discussion clearly happening, but one still happening. Quite embarrassing, to be completely honest. It's just this team has no leadership or anything of that sort. So
Randy Gregory threw the first punch.
Yeah,
it was Randy Gregory throwing the first punch.
Yep, this team has no leadership. Interesting to see that as we do welcome in James. James, what do you have for us? What did Hackett have to say? Was it just a pathetic speech? I don't even know what to expect out of him anymore.
Well, he has to go back and look at the film. Heard that three times. They got to do better. Starts with him. Heard that 3 times. And we needed to not turn the ball over and stop the run. Okay, well, you were 0 for 2 on that front. So, look, I will say this. You could tell the Denver media, they were grumpy that they were in LA on Christmas Day having to cover this because for the first time, they kind of came after Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, they badgered him a little bit of like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Going after the Randy Gregory thing. It was more of the type of press conference you would hear in Philly if you just lost 51-14 on Christmas Day. He didn't have any answers. He doesn't have any answers. It was much more of the same from Nathaniel Hackett. Look, and I said this on Halftime Show, Rachel. To some extent, guys, this is a Christmas gift, right? DMAC, you guys have been talking about it for 2 weeks, right? They had the moral victory against the Chiefs. Then they beat Trace McSorley, and everybody's like, well, maybe they're kind of getting it going. You know, what would he have to do to save his job? He's in over his head. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's an undisciplined team. They're an embarrassment. They're a joke. You needed to have something like this to where it's like you can't possibly spin it. 51-14, Christmas Day, worst loss since the game that essentially got McDaniels fired. You can talk about Spygate 2 all you want. 59-14 against the Raiders is why he got fired. This is the game that you can't spin it. You can't spin it. People are trying to, and we're hearing all the state-sponsored guys tell us, like, well, why would you fire him now? I mean, what good is it going to do? I don't know. You can get a jump start on looking at the next head coach, and Steve Wilkes is doing a pretty good job in Carolina, and you told us 5 weeks ago we couldn't fire Nathaniel Hackett. So it's time. It's a gift. We should all smile. It's Christmas night. The best thing that could have possibly happened to the Broncos for the long haul was they got blown out today, and they got it in decisive fashion.
Yeah, see, this is where, James, I love you, bud, but you really still think Hackett's the main problem here, and it's not. It's Russell Wilson. So
okay, let me throw while I was waiting for the interview, I'm watching Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms, and they made 2 really good points. How much better Baker Mayfield looked today with a decent head coach, and how much better has Trevor Lawrence looked with a decent head coach?
Oh my God, James!
Just telling you. Just telling you.
James. I mean, listen, you're you're going to get your wish and you're going to get stung at the same time. And it's
we don't have a choice with Russell Wilson. There's no option. He's back. George Payton should be fired for the contract.
Let me ask you this. Did anybody ask Nathaniel Hackett why Russell Wilson remained in the game after the second interception and should have been replaced after the first quarter?
No. They didn't ask him why he didn't get benched. They asked him why he got pulled, and he said once it was 44-14,
nobody asked him. Nobody asked him while the game was still sort of possibly
because they all watched Brett Rippon throw a high school out route that got taken the other direction for a pick six. Like, he doesn't have a good option on his bench. He didn't pick up Baker Mayfield 3 weeks ago like they should have. So
I promise you, Brett Rippon was a better option than what we saw in Russell Wilson after the first quarter. Promise you that. Now, is Brett Rippon a good option? No. Brett Rippon is a terrible option, and you clearly should have picked up Baker Mayfield at this point. You picked up Jarrett Guarantano, which, if you didn't notice, was added to the 53 and was a healthy scratch. If you don't like Brett Rippon so much, fine. Throw Guarantano in there. I mean, do anything. But, it was pathetic that we're just going to forfeit games because we feel so. Let me tell you something, James. There is no way on God's green earth Brett Rippon for an entire game would have been as bad as Russell Wilson was today. Zero chance.
Okay, but listen.
Zero.
But D-Mac,
zero.
After the second pick, what was the score? 17-0, 17-3. They didn't stop the Rams once. What the hell was going to be the difference? I mean, either the bloom is off that flower.
I'll tell you. You asked the question. What's the difference? Is you trade scores and you even things up. You give your defense hope. James, you don't realize why the defense gave up, man. They gave up because they don't believe in Russell Wilson, dude. They haven't believed in Russell Wilson since training camp.
Right. I enjoyed all those scores once Brett Rippon came in. But you're right. The Rams scored. The Rams scored going that way. That was freaking great.
James, game's over at that point. And they're so stupid. They're throwing passes instead of just running the ball into the line and letting the game end.
Against a team that
stupidity knows no bounds. But you're probably going to get your wish because everybody's going to – and this – I am not freaking defending Hackett. I think tomorrow's press conference should be Greg Penner announcing both Payton and Hackett are gone, okay? And then we can wait for June 1st, post-designate that departure of Russell Wilson and start over.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. And 2 weeks ago, I was arguing with you like, nope, you got to play it through. If they want to just eat it and be terrible for the next 2 years, fine. Russ isn't the number one problem, but he is a problem. I'll give you that. And if they just want to eat it, fine. But you're better off to see, hey, if we actually get a competent head coach, can he solve it with the guy who's been damn good for 10 years? So,
Did you see Tony Romo on the broadcast point out, hey, this play is here more than once? That's the problem, James.
I also don't remember Tony Romo doing the telestrator on all of Brett Rippon's touchdown passes.
Oh my God, James, you're deflecting in the wrong direction. You're arguing stupid points.
Here's the thing, though. We can all agree the Broncos should have gone after Baker Mayfield to, one, bring in some competition for Russell Wilson, and two, just to have a better backup quarterback because Brett Rippon is not the answer or the future. And clearly, while I don't believe that Nathaniel Hackett would have turned Baker Mayfield into what he is with Sean McVay, I do think it would have been a better option. Yes?
Sure. It's just another example of how George Payton is asleep at the wheel.
I agree. He's problem number one.
So bad at his job. And there are people in this town who think he's an A-plus general manager.
Blows me away.
Because Pat Surtain's a good player. He is. Pat Surtain's a great player. He was the 9th overall pick. Like, any of us could have got that right. He also passed on Justin Fields and Micah Parsons, who ESPN just redid that draft. You know who went number 2? Justin Fields. You know who went number 3? Micah Parsons. So he missed. Even though he got a good player, he missed. And that's his only hit. That's it. Randy Gregory, that's the guy he decided to spend money on instead of Von Miller and instead of Bradley Chubb. It's Randy Gregory who had 1 tackle, 1 assist, 2 15-yard penalties today, and 1 post-game fight. That's George Payton's decision right there.
And Hackett decided to pull Gregory out of the game after the roughing the passer call. So go ahead, D-Mac.
No, it's finally something myself, Randy Gregory, as he wants through the meetings.
Said he would talk tomorrow and said, y'all want to know if I hit him in the mouth? I did. And
Great.
Daniel Hackett
Awesome.
has no control of this team at all.
Yeah, hey, color me shocked that a guy who had that many problems in the past continues to have problems in the present. I am stunned that a guy who wasn't even active during training camp fought the Dallas Cowboys offense when he was just in sweats during training. I can't believe a guy who missed like 9 games and has missed half of his NFL career for a wide variety of reasons is now having issues. Oh my God, I'm stunned. George Payton, I mean,
but guys,
I can't tell you how bad George Payton is at his job. I mean, it's unfathomable. And because you drafted Baron Browning and Pat Surtain, you realize like cornerback doesn't even it doesn't even matter if you don't get like 4 other positions exactly right. If you get 4 other positions exactly right, quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher, and probably wide receiver, frankly, if you don't get those right, what good is that quarterback? Nothing, man. I mean, I'm just sitting here beside myself how stupid this team is. I mean, they're not just a bad team. They're dumb.
No, you're 100% right. And look, we watched Tyler Higbee go off today. Raise your hand if you've seen tight ends pick apart the Broncos the last 4 years. But nope, we're going to get by with Alex Singleton and Josie Jewell and then have the audacity to complain that Josie Jewell got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. Like, come on. Okay, but here's the other thing. It's one thing to lose and have a bad record. It's another thing to embarrass yourselves. A 50 burger is embarrassing. Rippon and Reisner fighting on the sideline is embarrassing. Randy Gregory getting in a fight after the game is embarrassing. Like, those are the kind of things where it's like, you're damaging your brand, right? Mm-hmm. You can spin away the 1-score losses. Like, we're 4-10, but man, a few plays here and there, like, I don't buy it, but you can spin it away if we're 8-6. You can't spin away a 51-14 stinker on Christmas Day where your players went out and embarrassed you as an owner, you as a coach, and your fan base. You can't spin it away. You can't get the stink off this turd. This is it. They're done. All of them should be done. All of them. And you want to put Russell Wilson in that group, D-Mac? Fine. I'm not going to argue with you. You put him on the list.
It's the big 3 that needs to be gone. I'm reading this.
He said, Dalton Reisner just explained Rippon came over and told the offensive line they have to help Russ up after a sack. Reisner thought he said something else. It's all brotherly love, miscommunication, frustration. Love Rip. Rippon said same. It was miscommunication.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
2 things.
Right. I love those explanations.
One, why do you have to tell him to help him up? Right? Like, we've all played sports. We would never have to be told to help our teammate up. We would just do it. And 2, what did Reisner think he said?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Good question, James.
Either way.
So he thought he said something like, what, that would have ticked him off?
Hey, okay. You know what, Rip? Mind your own damn business. You know?
I like that Rip said that,
Rip.
though. I personally think you're the backup QB to a quarterback that's making a ton more money than you. And I like that he still had his back in that moment. The offensive line has sucked all year. Russ hasn't been good either, but like, really, what room do you have to talk? I'm like, that's just my personal opinion, but I'm like, help your freaking teammate up. You're all in this together at the end of the day.
Rip is a badass now? That's what we got?
He's not a badass. He's just I was going to say like a nice, like a good person.
You know what, Rip? Why don't you, hey, I got it. Take off your shoulder
knows
pad.
He's never quarterback number 1. Rip is just there to be like a good person at the end of the day.
He wants to be a coach. Go for it. Go.
Beautiful.
See ya.
Go be a coach. Nathaniel Hackett sure wasn't saying anything, so I don't know.
You know what, okay. I'm with you, Rachel. If there were more guys on this team who stood up for the right way to do things, they would be better off. They would be. Now, Rippon's not the right guy probably to be doing that, but at least he had the right message. So, okay, I'll give him credit for that. I'll give him credit.
Think about in that moment, truthfully, you guys, if you were sitting there next to a teammate of yours who made so much more money than you, like unbelievable amounts of money, and you still have the decency to be like, hey, you guys aren't playing your part. I think that makes Brett Rippon a good person. I appreciated it for some
I'm
Christmas
laughing.
love.
This is like Alex Newhook, standing up for Curtis McDermott. I mean, let him fight his own battles. I mean, what are we doing here?
Rush
Hey, stop messing around with Curtis. Hey guys, you gotta pick up Russ when he falls down. I mean, come on. Don't you remember how awesome I was? You're right, James. Rippon's not it either. Listen, you had a chance to make things interesting if you were George Payton. You would have picked up Baker Mayfield and see what you had.
Which makes him problem number one. He is problem number one because he has put the entire Denver Broncos organization into this place. He's the one who brought in Russell Wilson, which I won't lie, we all thought it was a pretty good thing. We were all very excited about it. But he's the one who didn't allow Russ to play one single game for the Denver Broncos before signing him to the contract. There are so many things that George Payton has done, which is why he also needs to be out the door tomorrow morning with Nathaniel Hackett from the Penners saying, or from the Walton Penner group saying, no, this is unacceptable and this is not how we are going to allow this to continue. Bye. Yeah. I'm sorry.
He needs to go. The guy who decided, hey, on 2 of the first 3 plays, let's throw the ball to Cortland Sutton, a guy who hasn't caused any separation in 2.5 years. Let's go that direction. I mean, that's on Nathaniel Hackett. They're terrible throws by Russell Wilson. They're all to blame. They are. They're all to blame. But the only reset buttons you can hit, you don't have a salary cap with GMs. You can pay 12 of them if you want to fire them all. You don't have a salary cap with head coaches. You can pay 12 of them if you want to. Russell Wilson is here to stay, at least for the next 2 or 3 years. So you got to go get rid of the other 2. That's the reset button you can hit and try to fix that problem. It's the only hope you have.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. All right, everyone. That is going to do it here for our post-game live. If something does happen tomorrow morning, make sure you're tuned into DenverFan.com. Coffee break will go live nice and early if anything happens. So come hang out with us. We're going to break down everything you need to know. Will people get their Christmas wish? Will a change be made for the Denver Broncos? We'll find out. An interesting day for sure, but we still wish and hope everybody had a happy holidays. And we will see you guys all tomorrow morning.
Rachel, one last thing.
Go Nuggets.
Thank God all of the tight ends figured out how to wear goofy suits. Thank God. Thank God. And I'll bet you anything. Last thought. I'll bet you anything. Nikola Jokic is wearing a good-looking business suit, not some sort of goofy Christmas tree. That's just a wild guess on what a business day means for Nikola Jokic. And you saw what a bunch of idiots we have with the Denver Broncos.
Hey, Jake just told us the Broncos are 12-point road dogs next week against the Chiefs. Run to the window. Run to the window.
Run.
Yeah. No kidding. Seriously. All right, everyone, go Nuggets. They play the Suns tonight. D-Mac, I know you're headed to Ball Arena here shortly, and we'll see everybody tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for coffee break. It'll be the 3 of us breaking down everything you need to know. Come hang out with us. We'll see everybody then. Bye, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, this is just a frustrating video to watch.